And I will go back to a question that yes, asked. She said, or rather a statement, she said, from what has been said, it would appear that strategic communication is lacking. That has not been answered. So I would like to chip in on that before I go to your question. I don't think that strategic communication is lacking in Nigeria. I don't think so. And I say so across board. What is lacking is the content, the right content for strategic communication. And I say this with respect to the way we have seen things in the last 1 month. You will discover that where information is not available, you cannot communicate strategically. So what may be lacking is adequate information, be it from the communicator, be it from other players that are supposed to feed the communicator for him to now design the message that is supposed to be communicated. That's what I think is a challenge, because when the communicator does not have the right communication, he begins to guess what to say. And when you begin to guess what to say, you will see that confidence is not there because the message has not been properly articulated. So I would like to respond to that. Then, is every communicator suitable for every environment? Yes and no. Yes.
Now I'm confused.
Nobody will give you a definite answer. You know why? There are basic principles that you must learn as a communicator. And our professor will tell you this. There are basics. Now, after you have acquired the basic knowledge as a communicator, the basic knowledge, the basic experience in the field and in the classroom, okay?
But how do you acquire, I'm sorry, how do you acquire the experience? Because it brings us back to job hunting. How do you acquire the experience if not given the opportunity?
By reason of what you have done before.
If you have to be given the opportunity to do it before.
No, you are talking of situational issues. He talked about situational analysis, which we call understanding the operating environment. All right? Okay. I mean, that the fact that I have worked, for instance, as the communication director in NTA means that I must have acquired some basic knowledge and experience. You are now sending me to go and become the chief communicator in, let's say, Nigerian Customs Service or even Nigerian Army and so on and so forth. All right? But for the fact that every organization protects itself by ensuring that it is their own that communicates for them. But for that fact, I can tell you an intelligent communicator can fit into any environment and communicate intelligently, strategically, and effectively because the concept is one. What he needs is to understand the operating environment. The environment has changed. The way you were communicating in oil and gas is no longer the way you ought to be communicating for the Nigerian Army. Are you telling me that if an oil and gas company calls on SK Usman and says, come and be our director of communication, that he will not fit in? He will fit in very well because the principles are already there. He has acquired it by reason of what he has done. The only thing is for him to now realize that he's no longer in the theater of war.
That realization,
no, hold on. So
that realization, you know, would take him a lot because
it won't take him a lot.
The body language he's using to communicate for the Nigerian Army would definitely be different from that he would use when he's communicating for an oil and gas firm.
Remember that we are
the language, the terms, the terms.
No, before you come in, sir. Before you come in, remember that we are discussing strategic communication. Let's remember where we are. Strategic communication. All right? That's the subject matter. So we're saying that you can move from, okay, will you now tell me that somebody like Professor Pate cannot fit into communicating anything strategically.
You already said his world's best, so let's exclude him from this conversation.
It could be his world's best. It could be the world's best in classroom. But he now has all the ingredients, the knowledge. Look, let's face it in simple man's language. Strategic communication must give you the 5 W's and the 1 H. What is it that you want to communicate? Where do you want to communicate it? Which is the channel you want to use to communicate? When do you want to communicate this information? Where and how? And who is to do the communication? That is strategic communication. By the time you have answered these 6 questions, it means that you are communicating strategically. So you can carry it to any other place, but you must study the operating environment.
Thank you, Dr. Nedako.
I think I should add a word or two to what he has just said. First of all, in strategic communication or in training people or in assigning people responsibilities, there are 2 important things you need to understand. In communication training or in communication practice, there's what we call the tangibles and the intangibles. The tangibles are what we teach you in the class. This is how to interview, this is how to do this, this is how to raise your voice and maintain eye contact. These are the tangible things. But then the intangibles are the experiences you acquire, and you must respond to a particular situation. If you're in the army, if you're in the police, if you're in this, they have their own cultural nuances. Now, the intangibles are 1. Things like overcoming your own personal biases. There's nothing that is called complete objectivity. All of us, we have our own biases in one way or another. But have you been able to understand personally what your personal biases are? And then how do you consciously overcome them in the context of your operations? Then the issue that I've raised earlier on about empathy. You must have empathy. If you are in the army, you know their own culture, you know their own command structure. If you are in, let's say, a newsroom, you know how liberal and social the newsroom is. So you cannot carry the culture of the newsroom and straight take it into the army system. You must have that empathy. If you are relating with somebody in the village, you should understand his level of thinking, his horizon of understanding, and then come down to his level. If you are this and that, there is one thing about communication. Communication is passage of information. And what is information? Information simply means uncertainty reduction. If I ask you now, tell me the contents of my pocket, you're not informed about it, you don't know. But if I pull out a pen, say this is it, now you are informed. So you are certain about my pocket having this. So the same thing, if you are communicating with the people, are you misinforming them, malinforming them, disinforming them? Because this is why information does not have the word opposite. Whatever you give can be misinterpreted, can be interpreted the way that particular person understands it. So the understanding could now be your own misunderstanding. Therefore, for you to package message and send it out, it needs a lot of thinking. You don't just take it carelessly and assume 230 million Nigerians of 230-something, 40-something, different ethnic groups, different religious, multiple political orientations will understand your message the way you intend that they should understand.